Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. Thanks for being here, and this is a missing person segment, and in fact, it's another truckers segment. Well Dave, I thought you canceled that. I never said that. If we have something to say about truckers, I'll say it. And here we go. Now something I want you to think about. When you're doing research on a topic, what's important? Well, obviously name, age, hometown, facts surrounding the disappearance. Several years ago, we were researching a case of a missing someone in the medical field. It was a physical therapist. And they disappeared in this little town next to a Great Lake. And then about 2 weeks later, another physical therapist in the same town disappears under very similar circumstances. And we decided, okay, we got the information on the first one. Let's just see where the second one was born and raised. Same location, same city, same general area. That was the first time that we ever got a total hit like that. And both of these people, physical therapists, were working in a city and in a state far, far away from where they grew up. And friends said that they didn't even know each other if they grew up in the same town. It was a big town, but... So is that important? I think it is. I'm not sure what it means yet, but with those two women being from a location adjacent to a Great Lake, I've said to you many times, and a lot of people just want to ignore it, water is really important. Water hides a lot of things. And I think the Great Lakes, being some of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world, needs to be looked at hard. Sometimes it's difficult. In fact, many times it's difficult to figure out where someone was raised. And we got lucky on a few. Now, when we talk about truckers, the nature of their job is they have to be transient. They got to be moving. They got to be going place to place, different cities, different locations. And is that in and of itself important? What about implants? I've read a lot about this. A lot of abductees that claim alien abduction have had implants. And some people think that these are tracking devices. Other people think it's a transmission device to control the person who has it in them. And abductees have claimed that they hear voices telling them what to do every once in a while. Holy moly. So how do we know that the people that have been gone missing and have amnesia don't have a chip in them somewhere or have some kind of device in them? And it's only a very small group of people that have actually been bold enough to come forward and say, I think I have this thing in me. Now, there was a doctor named Roger Lear who took a lot of these devices out of people. And it's an unusual side story to what's important. But why I'm doing this to you is we all need to think a little harder outside the box to make this come true. A lot of people said, well, what's their blood type? Well, you're never going to know because that's private information according to HIPAA. So if somebody wants to make a big deal about blood, you might as well flush that toilet because no one's going to ever know. And it's irrelevant at this point. One researcher made a big deal about it at one time, but if you can't do anything with the idea, what's the use wasting time on it? So, and DNA is much more advanced than blood, so how do we know it's not some DNA type? Maybe there's a flaw in the DNA, which is why I put in many of the stories that I wrote about people who had a disability when they disappeared. Maybe somebody's studying that. Now, here's a wild card for you. I woke up with this the other night, kind of an epiphany moment. When I think about these truckers or the amnesia victims when they disappear, it's kind of like they're a rat in a maze when they wake up. They don't know where they are, they don't know where they're going, they got to do something. It kind of reminds me of a researcher standing at 20,000 feet looking down and goes, okay, let's see what this guy does now. Let's wake him up. I know it sounds weird. That's kind of how it sounds like to me. And, you know, like you put the rat in the maze, and how long is it going to take the rat to find the food? You put the person in the maze, how long is it going to take the person to figure his way out of it? Kind of the same thing, isn't it? Now, when we talk about peripheral importance, here's one that's going to knock your socks off. Well, first of all, we'll start with the trucker who disappeared. Owen Charles, 30 years old, went missing August 9th, 1937. He was married and had a 3-year-old son. Now, Owen was not a lazy man. He drove a bread truck 6 days a week, delivering bread like they used to deliver milk. I really like it if they deliver bread and milk now. That'd be good. And he also owned a big trucking business, hauled big loads across certain parts of the nation. So there were few times he had a day off. He was working hard all the time. Well, on August 9th, 1937, he left Carbondale, Illinois, his home, and he left in his big semi to pick up a load of peaches and deliver them to St. Louis, Missouri. Kind of an everyday task, nothing unusual about it. His wife said, I didn't even think about it. It's just like a normal day job for him. Well, 2 days later, his wife hadn't heard from him and knew something was really wrong. Now, can you imagine I know it's hard to imagine for people today, but you can get a hold of anybody, anywhere, anytime on their phone now. Back in 1937, it was a huge headache to get a hold of somebody. They didn't have a cell phone, and they had to find a payphone or find somebody to let them use their phone, and you had to have the right amount of dollars and coins to make the call. It was a tremendous hassle. But his wife, on August 11th, realized Owen's never done this. Something's really wrong, and reports him as a missing person and his truck as missing. Well, nothing happens. The cities that he went to had been looked into. City streets had been searched. It's a big truck. But on the 18th of August, a week later, Owen's truck's located in Joplin, Missouri. Empty, no peaches. And it was never explained if he had picked up the peaches and delivered them or never got to it. That's all we know. No peaches. Well, big search went on around Joplin. A BOL, be on the lookout for Owen Charles, and his physical description was given. Now, you're the wife. You haven't heard from your husband in over a week. And he's never done this before. The police questioned the wife, and they said, has he done this before? Is he a hard worker? Is he reliable? really reliable. Hard worker, really hard worker. Works all the time. In fact, works so hard, some doctors believe he had a nervous breakdown the month before. Took a couple days rest, went right back to work. Police know what to think of that. I wouldn't know what to think of that. Okay. What's a nervous breakdown caused by? I don't know. Was he working too hard? Too many pressures at home? I don't know. But August 20th, 7:25 p.m., Charles wakes up in downtown Austin, Texas, late at night. He's walking around and he sees a policeman at the corner. Officer's name was Evans. He walks up to Evans and says, "I need help. I'm not sure where I am. I have no idea how I got here. I don't remember my name. Can you help me?" Evans says, "Sure. Get in the car. I'll take you down to the police department and some detectives will talk to you." So early in the morning on August 21st, it was late at night, not on the 20th when he's picked up. So early in the morning on the 21st, detectives come in to interview Owen. And he was asked by some detectives the basic questions. Well, do you remember your name? Where you were born? Your mom's name? All these basic questions that people would know. No. He didn't have any ID with him. But he was wearing a long sleeve shirt. People didn't think much about it. And then one of the sheriffs said, "Do you remember anybody you ever voted for?" Thinking like a president or something. And he says, "Well, I know this guy and I voted for him, and his name was Ross Osborne." One of the detectives in the room knew Ross Osborne because he was the county sheriff in Murfreesboro, Illinois. Now you talk about a coincidence. They're in Texas, and a detective knows a sheriff in Illinois. And Owen just named him. Owen didn't know if he was married. They had him read some things he read like he was college educated. Well, once he said Illinois, the detective showed him a map of the state, and he pointed to Carbondale. Well, one of the detectives called Murfreesboro police and asked if they had a missing person matching Owen's description. And they said that their missing person had a special type of birthmark on their back. He's about 30 years old. Bingo, they ID'd Owen. That's good police work, folks. That's really a coincidence and good police work. So they get all the information on Owen and his family. And they call his wife and they explain what happened. And she said that she would fly down and pick him up. Now, as they're talking to Owen, it's getting warm, it's August, so he goes like this, pulls up his sleeves, and there on his arm, his name is tattooed. This is after they identified him. They couldn't believe it. They thought, how weird is that? Well, I want you to think about some things. I got to make you think. I'm sorry, that's my job. So, he left Carbondale, Illinois. And the quickest route to Joplin is a 5-hour and 56-minute ride of 381 miles. Goes right through the Mark Twain National Forest. Is that just a coincidence or what? There's Huck getting excited. I'm making her money. She's always saying, "Dave, why aren't you working harder?" She's a tough executive producer. Okay, now his truck is found in Joplin, Missouri. He walks up to a policeman in Austin, Texas. Here's Houston. Here's Austin. Now, it's 544 miles from Austin to Joplin. Goes right through Dallas and right by Oklahoma City. police thought Owen was telling the truth. He didn't know how he got there. How were these people getting across the nation and ending up in other states? Think about something. Many months ago, a firefighter disappeared from Upper New York while he was skiing. And he was later found in Sacramento, California, wearing the same ski gear. And he said he remembered riding in a truck with somebody. Very similar story. Loss of time and space. Amnesia. And he was a fire captain from Canada. This was the first case in years that I heard of that I could say it's a valid case. So any perceptions that it's not still occurring, I think it still is, just to a minimal degree. Now, I did a video about that case, that firefighter. So Owen Charles, his wife, picked him up, flew down there, got him. And he was a bread truck driver, and he was a big rig driver. Loss of time, loss of memory. Finds himself in Texas. Bingo. Okay, next case. Peripheral issues. Now, peripheral issues to missing people, search and rescue, police, where they were born, where they live, aunts, uncles, physical condition, disabilities, etc. Physicians. Maybe physicians that treat the victim. Hold your taters. Disappearance of a man named Giuseppi Vercellini. Dr. Giuseppi Vercellini. 83 years old, missing December 6, 1952. And he lived on San Rafael Avenue in Highland Park, California. And where is that? Well, hold on. I'm going to show you. This is a map. Right here is downtown Los Angeles, right here. Downtown Los Angeles. See it? So, if you go up the I-5, right where it crosses the 110, just north of there is Mount Washington. And Giuseppe lived in a neighborhood right around the mountain. Wasn't very developed in 1952. It's quite developed today. So you have a feeling for where this was at, LA. Now, Giuseppe was retired physician, lived with his daughter, a woman named Solveig Lambertson. They lived in that home together. Well, I told you he was a retired physician. Sit back, hold on, grab your armrests. He was a retired world expert on amnesia. Giuseppi Vercellini. He was considered an expert on people who lost their mind temporarily, lost their memory temporarily. This is Giuseppe. Now, what he liked to do is he always liked to hike the Mount Washington area. One of the reasons he got a house there. He enjoyed seeing if he could go out and sometimes dig around, find gold, find interesting rocks. It's just kind of one of the side things he did. Now, he had been retired from his medical practice for 23 years. Why is this interesting? On December 6, 1952, the doctor told his daughter that he was going to go take his regular afternoon hike. It's about 4 o'clock. Usually left for about an hour, walked essentially the same route every time. This area in 52 was considered pretty remote, not a lot of homes. Well, when the doctor didn't come home at dark, daughter got worried. Later that night, she went out, looked around, walked around, called his name, nothing. calls the police, and the police respond. Explains who her dad is, he's in good health, has a solid mind, something's wrong. Police agree, and they send a whole horde of policemen out there to search during the night for Giuseppi. Now, searching at night is tough. In 1952, policemen didn't have great flashlights, to say the least. But flashlights have come a long ways in 30 years. And the flashlights of today are like mini spotlights, they're so good. Well, back then they weren't so good. So the police knew that. They searched for several hours. They couldn't find him, so they committed to come back the next day with some search and rescue people and policemen, and if they could find a dog or two, they were bringing those. So the daughter came back to her house. Her dad hadn't come back. She was deathly worried. Plus, he's an older man. Well, the second full day of police searches, December 8th. They didn't find anything that night. They didn't find anything on the 7th. So the 8th. And they're dividing up the mountain into sections where they knew he'd be, and they weren't finding him. And they knew that he wouldn't have gone much farther at 83 years old. That same day, well, first of all, the first day he went missing, his picture was on every newspaper in LA County. He was a very prominent physician, so they put the word out. An old patient of Giuseppi's sees the picture, goes, "Oh my gosh, he's missing. I just saw him yesterday." Saw him from across the street or getting on a bus. It was getting on a bus, and he walked by and he was going to stop, but there's a lot of people. And he goes, "Hey, I know it was him." So he calls the police and says, "Yeah, in downtown LA, I saw him on December 7th. Police got an excuse. That was their excuse to quit searching. On December 9th, that very next day, they searched for a half day and gave up the search. Because it was their belief, because this patient knew him so well, that they believed that he was seen in downtown LA and he had amnesia. So they put his picture in the pocket of every cop in downtown LA and said, "Hey, keep your eye out for them." Okay. Well, two local boys on December 28th were playing on Mount Washington, on the side of the mountain, which they always did. A boy named Ralph Paulides, 15 years old, and Manuel Jimenez, 12 years old. They were on the side of the mountain looking down a gully on West Avenue 37, and they saw a big coat laying on a bush. They didn't think much of it. They thought it was a little odd, but, you know, whatever. Kids don't. If it's not their size, they don't care. But the next day, during the night, something bothered them, and they said, "Hey, let's go back and look at that coat." So they went down to the coat, and on the other side of the coat, on the ground, there's a body laying there. They called the police. Police came out and determined that was Dr. Giuseppi. An article in the LA newspapers, quote, "Searchers had previously passed within a few feet of the body, but it failed to see it because of thick vegetation." How many hundreds of times have I written that in books? A few. Do I believe it? No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe searchers are that bad. No, I don't believe he was there. Because it wasn't so thick that two boys didn't go down and see a big coat laying on a bush and then say, "Well, let's go check that out," which cops would have done, and find the body. That's weird. Police said that it appeared that the doctor fell 90 feet from a trail downhill into the bush. They never said what he died from. They didn't say he had any broken bones. They didn't say anything. They had a private funeral service at Sacred Heart Church near his house. And then the police said one more thing. They thought that he had been deceased since the day he went missing. That's complex. Here's why it's complex. Let me tell you a story. I was working in Fremont Police, and I was trying to get into San Jose. And when I was in high school, I was given a task to, we were taking a civics class, and all of us got divided up assignments to go do different things in a downtown area where, like, work with the mayor for a day, work with public works for all those kind of things, then write a report about it. I jumped on the one that ride along with the police. I kind of thought I might want to be a policeman even in high school. But I went to San Jose, signed up, and they gave me Officer Gordon Silva. I still remember that night to this day. I'll never forget it. It was one of the greatest nights ever. Gordon was an outstanding human being from Hawaii, A+ person. So I eventually come down to San Jose, and everybody who's an officer in San Jose works off-duty jobs. And there's hundreds of them. You can do all kinds of things. The best ones, indoor, climate controlled, nice people, clean atmosphere. And really the best one was at a place called Westgate Shopping Center on Saratoga Avenue. And the sergeant who ran that pay job was a man named Hans Gertz, police sergeant. About 6 months after I'm on San Jose, Gordon goes, hey, I want you to meet this guy. So I walk up, and Hans is this German guy, just rugged face, and how do you do, sir? Nice to meet you. And he goes, I hear you want to work at Westgate. I look at Gordon, and Gordon shaking his head. Yeah, I do. I never even had talked to him about it. And he goes, well, we have one opening on such and such a day. Can you do it? It just happened to be one of my days off. I said, yeah. I started to work at Westgate Shopping Center. And it was a Thursday, and you worked from 3 in the afternoon till 10 at night. And you just walked around the mall, and then you were dispatched to call for service from a jewelry store called A. Hirsch & Son Jewelers. And the jewelers in there liked us hanging out, obviously. And they also were, all the other stores in the mall would call A. Hirsch & Son if they had a problem. And then they would call us on our radio. And it was a great job. Great job. Paid really good money. And people were really nice. And every once in a while, something bad would happen. But I'd been there for several years. And once you got a job like that, you just never left. And I didn't want to leave. And again, Gordon and I were best buddies. Well, he was working day shift in downtown San Jose as patrolman. And somebody in this one part of downtown, it's split up. There's a district here and a district here. And the street that separates it, the district here is on one radio channel, district here is on another radio channel. In this district, by San Jose State, a patrolman got a call of a suspicious person at a donut shop. And he got there and he got jumped by the guy. Fight was on. People all called on their phones saying, hey, this is an emergency. We need help. This policeman needs help. So even this district was called to start responding. Gordon in this district starts responding. He's one of the first guys there, and what he sees, he can't believe it. There's one police car on this side of the street, one police car on this side of the street, Gordon, and now the suspect walks up the middle of the street with a gun in his hand. They can't even see the policeman anywhere. They're more concerned now with the guy with the gun. Well, Gordon's over here. The officer over here shoots, misses the suspect partially with a shotgun. A couple of pellets go under the car, come up, and they strike Gordon in the chest. He's transported to the hospital. I get a page. I'm off duty about what happened. I go to the hospital. I met his girlfriend there who I knew. And make a long story short, Gordon didn't make it. Now, reason I told you this story. There's a woman, jeweler at A. Hirsch & Son Jewelers. She was a sensitive type, super nice lady. Gordon and I both liked her a lot. She's like your mom. And it's probably maybe a week after Gordon died is the next time I worked there. And this lady grabs me by the arm when I walk in. And she said, "What time do you think Gordon died?" I said, "It's probably about 11:10, 11:08, something like that." And right now we have all the jewelers standing around us. This woman says, "Dave, the day he died, when he died, he walked down the mall." I didn't know what to make with that. I didn't know what to think. The other jewelers were standing around because they validated what she said she saw. Kind of that last walk. Now, Gordon, I was the closest guy to Gordon on the police department. He was from Hawaii. His family came out, and they had services, and then they wanted to have services in Hawaii. So the family went to the chief and they asked if I could go to Hawaii and represent the police department. I did. I went. And these were Hawaiian mountain people. Nicest people I've ever met. The Kamaka, K-A-M-A-K-A family. I know the story keeps going on, but one of Gordon's nephews was a prison guard at Halawa State Prison in Hawaii. And God's my witness, this is a true story. He says, "Hey Dave, you ever want to take a tour?" And I was there for a week, and I really liked, his name was Cranston Kamaka. I really like Cranston. So he gave me a tour. And we go to Supermax at Halawa, and he goes, "Dave, I want you to meet this person. He's in there for murder, but Dave, he's a good guy. You got to meet him." I said, "Okay. If you, Cranston, say he's a good guy, I'll meet him." So they bring this guy out shackled up and everything, and then they take everything off, and he's like, "Mr. Polite, sir, how do you do? Nice to meet you." Very small person, I'd say he's 5'6", 100 pounds. And Cranston said, this man had some kids, and there was a drug dealer that kept coming in their neighborhood selling drugs to the kids, and he told the guy if he came back, he was going to kill him. The guy came back, he killed him. Well, he was also, this small man in for murder was also a 10th degree martial arts expert who spent time in Japan. And Cranston goes, "Hey Dave, do you have a quarter?" I'm thinking, what's he want a quarter for? I reach in my pocket, I had a quarter. I gave it to him, and Cranston goes, "Can you do it?" He looks at the guy and he goes, "Can you do it?" I'm thinking, what's he doing? He gives the guy a quarter. And then the guy stands up and he kind of puts his hands together like this. And he's kneeling a little bit. And he starts rubbing the quarter like this. And he does that maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And I swear to you, his eyes were like rolled back into his head. He had real thin arms, but all the blood went to his muscles. And right in front of you, you could see him growing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And then he's rubbing for 2 or 3 minutes. He starts shaking. And he's shaking. And Cranston walks around behind him. And as he's shaking, folks, I kid you not, he tore the quarter in half. And then he just kind of fell apart. Cranston held him up. And then we had this long conversation about how he could do that. And he said it was your mind. You got to train your mind how to control your muscles and your blood. One of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. It was weird. And I got way off track. I'm sorry. Don't get mad. Back to the Giuseppi. When the person said that they saw Giuseppi getting on a bus downtown, that was right near where his old office was. It would have been the same bus he would have taken home. That's why people thought it was him. And when I read that, I thought exactly of the Gordon story walking through the mall. Could that have been the moment that Giuseppi died? I have no idea. I can tell you, I'm filled with all these stories in life, but... And by the way, there were 4 or 5 people that stood up in front of 15,000 people at Gordon's funeral. And Gordon was responding to an officer that got jumped and was beaten on. His name was Gene Simpson. Gene was shot and killed by the suspect. So there was a double funeral. And I was one of the 4 people who talked about both officers. Gene was one of the nicest men in the world. Honestly, Gordon and Gene were probably the only 2 policemen I knew of on that whole 1,400 member department that no one said a bad thing about. And to lose those 2 guys was just devastating. And making a speech like that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was young, never done anything like that before. Especially when it involves somebody you care about. Thanks for being here. I hope you can see the reason I told you the Giuseppi story. I hope it made sense to you. And the Owen Charles story. And you could do me a big favor by sharing this video with others. I appreciate you being here. Paulides out.